is the Bearcast, presented by Bird Culchin Ford. Bird Culchin Ford has been in Waco since 1936. Ford is the #1 selling truck in Texas 43 years running. The Bearcast is also presented by WellMed Medical Management and USMD Health System Dallas. Here's Craig Smoke and Grayson Grundhafer.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into a new edition of the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.com, Sic'Em365 Radio. I'm Craig Smoke, writer, team reporter for Sic'Em365, joined as always by Grayson Grundhafer, director of broadcasting, also team and recruiting reporter. And we've got a couple new commits to talk about this week. We got a little bit of football and a little bit of basketball as well to discuss. But Grayson, how you doing today?
Yeah, I mean, it's always a good week when there's recruiting information going on, you know, the commits, and of course the junior day coming up, which will be a lot of fun to talk about, and also wins. I mean, when you see wins on the basketball side, that's a lot of fun. I know tennis got going this week as well, which is cool to see. And yeah, overall, I think a really good week and a really nice week for Baylor athletics. Yeah,
much different batch of results for basketball, both men and women's, than what we were talking about last week. Last week, coming off of some losses, and now Lady Bears have won 2 in a row, including a big victory over Iowa State. Baylor men keep clicking along as well. But let's start off with football as we dive right into things. A couple of commits, including a commit kind of out of nowhere for the class of 2022, meaning that the class that is going to be on campus starting next season, starting this spring, starting in some cases already with a batch of guys like, Armani Winfield, who are on campus now as of, about a week ago. We saw a late addition to the 2022 class, seemingly out of nowhere, and seemingly more out of nowhere when you consider it wasn't like some local guy who joined late or some even player from the state of Texas. It was a player from the state of Florida and Miami, to be exact. Tyquan Thornton's old stomping grounds, MIA. But Alfonso Allen from Miami Central High School, defensive back, 5'10", 185, with a very impressive offer list, although we'll get into why he's available now and why there was all these schools after him, and we really didn't hear too much about it. You can lay that out for everybody, but Alfonso Allen gave his pledge and signed with Baylor, so he is going to be on campus, for next season in the class of 2022. But your thoughts on the late addition? Obviously, I guess my first thoughts were, okay, cool to go to the Florida bin again. You don't do that very often, but it worked out well with Tyquan Thornton. But also knowing this team needs secondary help because of what they're losing and their relative lack of experience there. He doesn't have experience that he's bringing with him, but it is a body, it is a talent, it is a guy that a lot of other schools were looking at, obviously, as well.
Yeah, and I mean, where to start? I guess the first part is not only did he sign, but he's enrolling early. So he'll be on campus very, very soon for spring ball, which that's massive, right? Because Baylor's really trying to figure out exactly what they're going to do in their secondary and also figure out, do they need to enter the transfer portal and try to add some guys? Do they need to kind of shake things up and add maybe a safety to the group to give them some more veteran leadership after losing JT Woods and Jalen Petrie, along with Kalen Barnes and Raleigh Tejada? So I think this spring is going to be great for the staff to really evaluate all of these guys and figure out where they are. Alfonso Allen is early enrolling. Corey Gordon and Devin Bobby are both on campus already. So this is going to be great, I think, for the Baylor staff. Now, as far as Alfonso goes, so he showed up on his official visit for the Oklahoma State game, or I guess it wasn't for the Oklahoma State game, but he went to the Oklahoma State game with Dave Aranda, and they were caught sitting together, and that's how everyone found out he was on his official visit. That's how I found out. That's how pretty much everyone did. I mean, they kept this really, really quiet, and I think it was for good reason, honestly. I mean, if you look at his offer list, Alabama, Arkansas, Auburn, Clemson, Florida, LSU, Michigan, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, I mean, he might have taken the best offer list in the class award away from Armani Winfield. He might have. It's definitely comparable now for him. But anyway, so going through the ebbs and flows of his recruitment a little bit. So he's a 4-star on every website except for 247. 247 dropped him all the way down to an 86 overall 3-star, which is like a mid-range 3-star. And they did this pretty much when a lot of people, I think, felt like he might not qualify academically. And
so that means he's less of a football player?
See, and that's hedging your bet, right? Because a lot of the 247 guys, when you do not qualify academically, they drop you down, or when they think you're not, they always do. It's for whatever reason, it's a thing because they don't want to go back, and then a guy signs with like a JUCO, and you're like, why is he ranked so highly?
Because his grades are not good.
Yeah,
why don't you just say that?
Right, but who cares, right? Like you said, yeah, who cares? I mentioned this when I was on the radio with y'all. They need to fix his ranking because it's not fair to him, and it's not fair to Baylor's recruiting class for a kid that has this kind of offer list and the talent that he does when everyone else knows that he's right around a 4-star, should be at least 88 to 92, somewhere in there. You need to go fix that. But anyways, really talented football player. I see him as probably a star in Baylor's defense, but I could see him potentially playing the boundary as well, which is what Christian Morgan plays and is probably going to play this year. But yeah, so I mean, really talented player, fast, plays fast on film, not afraid to hit extremely hard. I wish I got to see a little bit more of the turnover forcing ability. He doesn't show a ton of that on film. But yeah, overall, I really like to pick up. Love the offer list. Love the fact that Baylor was able to go into Florida and land him, which is an area of the country that Baylor's trying to recruit more. They've put out quite a few offers in 2023 and 2024 to the Florida area. So they're clearly trying to build a little bit of a pipeline there. And I think he kind of profiles and fits to exactly what they were looking for in their secondary if they weren't going to land a cornerback.
Well, for a group that's going to be missing half their secondary as they enter spring ball because of graduation, they're going to have a full secondary on campus early enrolling. You look at the list, and 8, a pretty healthy number of early enrollees to have. You add Alfonso Allen into this group. You've also got Devin Bobby at safety, Corey Gordon listed as a safety. So there's 3 safeties alone that'll be on your spring roster, not to mention also Reggie Bush II at cornerback. So, again, you've got, one of those guys I'm sure could play a little corner if needed to, and you could have a full secondary just on newcomers and midterm enrollees. And you add those 4 in with tight end Kelsey Johnson, offensive lineman George Maye, tight end Cody Mladinka, as well as obviously highly touted wide receiver Armani Winfield. So those guys on campus getting acclimated and getting ready for spring ball here in a few weeks.
Yeah, and I haven't gotten confirmation yet, but I think Miley will be on campus this week. He was actually at the Polynesian Bowl, so that's why he was a week late from enrolling early. He was playing in that All-Star Game Bowl. So yeah, I think that was a good experience for him. So he should be arriving this week. But yeah, I mean, it's a great group, right, of early enrollees and a group of guys that need to come in and compete right away. And I like the kind of spreading of the group because I think it's going to give the coaching staff a really good idea of what they need at various positions. And since the transfer portal just continues to be filled with tons of names, we know after spring ball there's going to be a ton more names added to the fold. So, yeah, I think that Baylor's in a pretty good position now where they can kind of sit back and evaluate the talent that they have on campus and then decide from there.
So, nice to see a unexpected late, but definitely welcome addition to the 2022 class. So again, Alfonso Allen from Miami, Florida, joining the Baylor Bears out of nowhere last week, and you probably followed along with that crazy little journey on Sic'Em365.com, or at least hopefully you did, and you would have heard some of the background information, or read, I should say, some of the background information on Alfonso Allen and that commitment. Now, he was not the only one. He was definitely the most unexpected one because we kind of thought the class of 2022, at least it was, there's still room to sign guys, but, not expecting a midterm enrollee popping up. But 2023, you're expecting commits because that's who's on the radar right now. That's whose time it is. 2023 class is on the clock, and they've got a full year on the calendar to be wined and dined. But Baylor has started to put together, the base of this class, and you can see now that they're about a third of the way through, if not a quarter of the way through, with their pledges, as they have really here in the last couple of weeks added 2 or 3 guys to this class now at this point. But they got the big quarterback in Austin Novosad, last month. So you got that. You had your early commits, your guys that kind of kicked off your class, but you went local with your latest pledge and a good one. Javion Wilcox of Lake Belton High School. Lake Belton, for those that don't know, is a brand new school. They're just getting into actually playing UIL, official games and whatnot after a warm-up season, so to speak. So Lake Belton's a new school to watch for, brand new, and they're going to be taking a lot of talent away from just regular Belton High. And Javion Wilcox is the latest member of the Baylor 2023 class. Defensive back, wide receiver, you can sort that out. But from Lake Belton High School, 6'1", 185 pounds, and gave his pledge on Monday. Had offers as well from the likes of SMU and UTSA. So your thoughts on Javion Wilcox?
Yeah, so he's a really cool and interesting prospect because obviously the local area, right? And Baylor's really done a nice job of making local Waco, Central Texas in general, just an absolute priority. And they're definitely doing that in this 2023 class. And Javion's a really good player. They offered him pretty early. They really like what they saw from him on his junior tape, and you can see why. He looks really strong and fast on his film. Very explosive, plays wide receiver, like you said, plays basketball as well. So he's a very versatile athlete. And when you see kind of highlights of him dunking, I mean, it is ridiculous. I mean, dude's doing windmills, reverse windmills between the legs. I mean, it is really fun to watch. I would be shocked if he had anything less than like a 35 or a 36-inch vertical. So an explosive athlete, which is fun to watch. And I think if you watch him play, I view him as a star. I think he's going to fit into that Jalen Petrie role. But I was actually talking to Jack earlier, and his strength and his just kind of stout makeup makes me think that there's a chance he could end up as like a will linebacker in this scheme, and that would not shock me. I know Colt reported that he thinks he's more like 6'1", 195. Javion told me yesterday that he's 185, so I'm not really sure exactly where he falls in line there weight-wise, and I'm sure basketball season might have tilted him down the scale a little bit since that started up. But really good player. He plays on the Juice 7-on-7 team, which is the same team as Austin Novosad, so they know each other pretty well. And there's a few other guys on that team that are going to be visiting for Junior Day. A recent offer out of Temple, Tarian York, he plays on that team. He was a recent Baylor offer this week. So a lot of really good connections that are building around the Central Texas area. And also Javion is really, really close with Micah Hudson, who's a 2024 wide receiver, probably going to be one of the, I would say, 10 best wide receivers in the entire country, probably, in his class. So great relationship there. Javion visited this past weekend. And so he visited, went on a trip with Micah. They got to see Baylor, see the campus, see the academic side, which was a big thing that stood out to him. And he'll be back this weekend for Junior Day. So really, I mean, this is just a great pickup, just Central Texas area in general, at a position of need, and an athlete who, honestly, I think is just scratching the surface of his potential. I see a lot of rawness in his game that I think when he gets to Baylor, he's going to turn into a very, very good player after maybe a couple years.
Well, one thing's for certain, they have certainly eyed the safety position or just defensive backs in general. If you look at the 2022 class, you signed Alfonso Allen, Devin Bobby, Corey Gordon. They're all listed as safeties. I know guys can move around, but just bear with me here. And you also signed Reggie Bush II. So that's 4 defensive backs that were in that 2022 class. And, you're obviously missing JT Woods and Kalen Barnes and Raleigh Tejada. They're all going out the door. You're luckily getting Al Walcott back. I think you're getting Christian Morgan back. I still haven't seen anything official on that, but he indicated that. He just never had the banner Baylor, like everybody did. But those 4 last year's class that'll be true freshmen this season. And then already in the 2023 class, you've got 7 commits. 3 of those are listed as safeties and 1 as corner. So defensive back has clearly been a focus in these last 2 recruiting classes as Wilcox joins Jakevian Rogers, at Dangerfield, Corey Huff Jr., as well as Tyler Turner.
Yeah, and I think what you're seeing, obviously cornerback is one that they're going to focus on kind of separate from safety, but I would say that if you look at the safety position, the guys that they're recruiting, I think there's going to be a major shakeup at the safety position with the guys on the roster. Like, I think if you look at the roster and you go, this guy was playing this position this year, this guy was playing this position this year, I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit of a shakeup. I think you're going to see some guys maybe playing field safety and they were playing boundary safety this year, or guys playing the star, they're moving to boundary and so forth. I just think there's going to be a great shakeup because I think there's a lot of guys that they were still trying to figure out what they could do throughout the season. So I think in this spring ball portion of their practices, I think there's going to be a lot of guys moving around.
Well, regardless of what they do, they're racking up the commits, and they're getting some guys who are versatile. And I agree with you, but just going off what they're listed by and trying to figure out where they fit in, I'm sure they'll have fun with that. And there will be some Jalen Petrie, type players who can do a little bit of everything. But nice pickup there with Javion Wilcox getting a local player. And that now makes 7 commits total for the class of 2023. So speaking of that class and future classes, got Junior Day that's going to be coming up, and obviously that's a prime opportunity to take a look at all these future talents and who you want to offer and who you like and who you want to see if they're under the radar, and you can, kind of see if you can and sneak in there and kind of like Alfonso Allen, in a way, find that diamond in the rough, but also just get an eye on the guys who are clearly going to be recruited by everybody else as well. So it's in terms of Junior Day, the event, who's coming in, all that kind of jazz. I know there's information on the website, but how would you break it down for us here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good group. And I mean, if you look at the list that's posted on our website, I think I'm close to 50 names on this list. Now, I think the expectation is that it's going to be probably between 35 and 40 guys that show up, because a lot of times there's a conflict that comes up, or, guys just don't end up making it. So I'd anticipate maybe, around 6 to 10 guys that maybe are on the list that maybe don't show up. But then I would also say there's probably a couple names that I don't have that show up as well. So, it's a really good group, kind of looking through the breakdown of the positions. Quarterback, there's only going to be one on campus, and that's going to be their commit, Austin Novosad. There's a reason they didn't take a 2022 commit. There's a reason they feel good about the quarterbacks in their room. So I think what I deduce from that is they like the quarterbacks on campus, and they really like Austin Novosad because they're hedging their bet on 2 classes on Novosad at the quarterback position. So he'll be there. That's a key one because his relationships. So I got this question, I guess, last week, Craig. So I'll go down just a slight rabbit hole. But people were saying how, when Zach Pyron decommitted, there was no longer a ringleader for the class. There was no longer a outright leader, an outspoken leader who was going to bring the class together and go out and recruit guys. And I don't find that true. I find that to be completely false because, no offense to Zach Pyron, but he's from Alabama. He was not recruiting guys to the level that he could have as like an Austin Novosad will be because of Novosad's connections in the state of Texas. His 7-on-7 team, the fact that he's grown up with a lot of these guys, I mean, it's just not comparable at all. And if you look at last class, you had guys like Trey Emery and Jeremy Evans and, Kyler Jordan, who really did a great job of keeping that class together and did a great job of recruiting other guys as well. So I guess all this to say is I think Baylor really has a true ringleader this year in their class at the quarterback position, and that's Austin Novosad. And I think what he could do for this class, especially this weekend, could be massive. I mean, just talking about quick relationships that he has in this class, he's close with Marquise Collins, the running back out of College Station, Del Val, wide receiver Braylon James, Temple wide receiver Mikael Harrison Pilot. They're on the same 7-on-7 team. And then he's also close with Austin Westlake defensive end Colton Vosick. And if you've been following him, he's added offers from, it feels like everybody this past week. Texas and Oklahoma, I know, were 2 really recent ones. Bravion Rogers, the 4-star out of LaGrange, they're on the same 7-on-7 team. Javion Wilcox, they're on the same 7-on-7 team. Tayshawn Wilson, the cornerback out of Maid Creek, they actually met each other at the Combine in San Antonio, and they became much closer as well. I'm sure I'm missing some, but I mean, just naming those guys right there, I mean, that's some high-end talent that we're talking about. And then also, of course, Tari and York out of Temple. They're on the same 7-on-7 team. So I just think this is a great opportunity for him to come in here and make a huge impression on these guys and really bring this class together. So a lot of talent on campus. I would say if you look kind of at the priorities, it seems like linebacker, defensive line, offensive line are definitely areas of focus with this visit. And then also cornerback. They have 5 cornerbacks coming for this weekend, which is pretty crazy. That's a lot of cornerbacks, and you're not going to be able to take all of them. They're also going to have a 2023 visitor on Friday that's also a cornerback. So, they've definitely made those areas of focus with this visit.
All right, so got what's called Weekend of Champions.
Yep, Weekend of
Junior
Champions,
Day.
yeah.
And that's this weekend.
Yeah, Sunday. It's just Sunday. It's an unofficial visit. It's just going to be a lot of it's going to be, at least in the past. I mean, if you really think about it, this is Dave Aranda's first junior day. I mean, because of COVID. So in the past, it's basically you go through some academic portions, you see where the living accommodations, what those will be like at Baylor, go through a meeting with typically the position coach and maybe Dave Aranda as well. Kind of depends on how Aranda is going to format it this year. Obviously, the position coach meeting will definitely happen for all of them. And then the big thing will be, it's just for fun, right? I mean, they're showing up to have a good time and get to know Baylor. I know in the past there were pool parties, there was grill outs, there was, guys going fishing. I mean, a lot of things like that, outdoor activities. It's going to be a little cold, so I'm curious what they do this year, but I could see them maybe grilling out and playing some games, maybe playing some basketball or something, just having fun. That's the overall goal, having fun and having these guys meet each other and get comfortable getting to know each other. And as far as the committed guys, their goal is going to be to try to get some guys to join the class with them.
Are you expecting anything on that front?
I am.
You are?
I would be shocked if they leave this weekend without at least like 2 commits.
Really?
I would be pretty shocked. And it's mainly because they've put themselves in such a good position with a lot of these guys. And I just feel like it's almost at a tipping point for some of them where it's like this could really push them over the top and make them commit. So I would say probably my over-under would be 2 commits for this weekend, but I could see it being more. I would be a little surprised if it was less than that, though.
Well, definitely stay tuned to the boards, and if you're not signed up for alerts, go ahead and sign up for those as well. So anytime there's a commit or a piece of like absolutely like big news, it won't be like a final score gets sent to your phone after every single game, but like, when the NCAA ruling came in, you got a text message or
commits.
Commits always are text messages, so you can sign up for those alerts over on the website as well. But make sure to have those turned on this weekend, on Sunday in particular, because a good chance that Baylor could be adding to their 2023 class that is now, with 7 guys, about a quarter of the way. A little over a quarter of the way through. Or wait.
Yeah, 24.
Yeah.
They're probably going to take like between 20 and 22. That sounds about right.
And so 2023 is in full swing right now, and there is a lot of optimism. I was looking at the rankings for 2023.
Yeah.
Tech has the number 1 class, Oklahoma, and then Baylor as of right now. But Texas is at like 6. They've got 1 commit. So that's why. It's because they have 1 single commit.
I mean, it'll be Oklahoma and Texas at the top,
Yeah,
and then you're fighting for 3rd.
Yeah.
That's how it is. But for Baylor, I mean, there's high expectations for this class that it finishes inside the top 25. I think there are just absolute expectations. Baylor needs to find a way to have a top 25 class, and obviously that can mean a lot of different things to a lot of people. You can have a top 25 class and finish at number 30. You know what I mean, in your head, but it's just winning some of those battles that maybe they weren't able to win this year, and they feel like they need to go win them, and that could be a big reason why we've seen so much turnover in the recruiting department. They're really trying to put all their efforts into, we want a top 25 class. We feel like we should be no worse than 3rd in the recruiting rankings when they come out, and we should be able to beat TCU and Oklahoma State in those rankings.
Yeah, and I would be shocked to see if Tech stays on top, which they're not going to, because like half these guys in all these classes that they're ranking don't even have rankings yet. It's just like, 3 of the 7 guys in Baylor's class, I think, have rankings at this point. Right. So it's very loose. It'll be Oklahoma or Texas on top, probably Texas, unless Oklahoma just has a huge year under Venables.
Well, they just got Jackson Arnold, so that's going to help some things.
But, I mean, either way, it's one of those 2. And then, who wants to be number 3? And Baylor's got a great, reason to be number 3 when all is said and done. But, man, it's going to be a long journey just getting started with 2023. But, 7 commits. Maybe 8 or 9 by the end of the weekend. That's a pretty solid start, and that would actually give them, yeah, the most by far in the class. I mean, only them and Tech have more than 4 at this point. So long way to go, but exciting start for the Bears, and good to have their quarterback already in the fold as well. So welcome to Alfonso Allen of Florida, now early enrolling, and then a little bit later down the line, obviously, Javion Wilcox as a part of this class of 2023. Junior Day coming up on Sunday. So again, stay tuned to the website for more info there. Outside of that, football, still looking for a wide receivers coach. Have not hired anybody just yet. I saw Chancey Stuckey posted a party note to Baylor fans. So don't have a bad word to say about the dude. Enjoyed the couple times I got to talk to him, and he seemed like a really nice guy. I don't get mad at every person who takes a new job, unless they give me a reason to, and he certainly didn't. So best of luck to Chancey Stuckey at Notre Dame, and I think it could work out better for Baylor in the long run. So definitely I'm not sweating it, but do wish him the best. And football-wise, that's about where we are. I wrote a piece on special teams. I'm going to take a look back at the team from last year. I went pretty in-depth on special teams, but I learned a lot. Hopefully you do too, because as you're watching live, maybe you don't think about certain things all the time. But like field goals, for example, was an area that I wasn't like – my confidence wasn't 100%, but it was higher than it probably should have been based on the numbers that I went back and looked at in hindsight. And so just little things like that I hope you pick up with me along the way as I go from group to group. But I started off with special teams and was I feel like pretty thorough with a group that not many people talk about. So that and Grayson's writings on the class and so much more is up on the website right now. And there's also a lot of basketball talk. Definitely a 180 last week from the conversations that were going on the week prior, coming off of some losses on both the men and women's side of things. Nikki Collin and company just struggling to get wins, and then the men's team going on a little bit of a skid themselves, but both have corrected themselves now at this point. And in fact, the Baylor women, with Nikki Collin getting not only a couple of wins in Big 12 play, starting off with Oklahoma State, a near 20-point victory over the Cowgirls, but big win, historic win in this short amount of time that Nikki Collin has been head coach of the Baylor women. Easily her biggest W over number 7 Iowa State, 87-61 this past Sunday at the Farrell Center. So 3 wins in a row, for the Baylor women, and that's got them right back in the thick of things in the Big 12 race. And I saw somebody say, wow, the Big 12 is just so even this year. And I'll say this again, because I've said on the show before, I wonder what's different this year from all the other years of Big 12 women's basketball. Who's not around that used to not make it an even playing field, And it is a more even playing field with no Kim Mulkey, because they used to dominate this league. And now with her no longer around, and then some hires that other teams have made, it is turned into a pretty competitive league. And Baylor women started off on a little bit of a off note, just dealing with injuries, COVID pauses, and just, a new coach. But while I'm not ready to hang the banner, it is good to see them picking up some wins now.
Yeah, and I mean, that's a fair comment, right, that Kim Mulkey dominated this league, because she did. I mean, it's absolutely fair.
If somebody wants to argue that, I'll argue that all day, and they will be wrong at the end of the day.
One thing I would say about the balance of the league, though, is I can't remember a time, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that you'd be sitting here at this point in the season and 6 teams would have 12 or more wins already. I mean, and that's not just conference play. That's going out of conference and winning a lot of games. I mean, that is something that's very intriguing. I mean, you look at the top of the conference, and there's 5 teams with only 2 losses in this conference right now. It is very balanced, and it's going to be very tough to win a lot of games in this league. There's going to be a ton of losses taken, and Baylor is entering a stretch right now that I think might be their most important of the season. And the reason for it is they have 2 road matchups against Texas Tech and West Virginia that they need to find a way to win. Those are 2 teams that have been very beatable up to this point in the season. If Baylor can win those 2, then you got those matchups against Oklahoma and then the doubleheader against Texas. This stretch right here, I think, is going to be very important, and I think you're going to find out whether Baylor is truly a competitor for the Big 12 championship over this run.
Jordan Lewis was fantastic against Iowa State, 6 of 7 from 3, 9 of 11 shooting, 24 points. Yeah. And the Lady Bears, still firmly there inside the top 15, even, jumping up a little bit for the first time in a while rather than going backwards. So good to see them on a little bit of a winning streak. They lost what I've already forgotten her name. The transfer from last week who announced that she was going to be leaving the team.
McDaniel.
Yeah, Kamaria McDaniel. And they've turned around and won 2 straight since she left. So I thought that was going to be, and maybe it still will be, just an attrition thing where numbers aren't great. And that's what I worry about more so than just individual play. But they've dealt with some things and they got a long way to go. But it's good to see something positive.
Right. And when we talked last week, a big area that I mentioned was rebounding and really just being the more physical team. And you saw that in this game. They out-rebounded them 43-31. But the area that I really saw the most improvement out of Baylor was on the defensive side. For years and years, Iowa State has just shot Baylor out of the gym, it feels like. I think Jack told me the last 4 years they've split every single year with Iowa State because of that three-point shooting ability. And in this matchup, I mean, Iowa State was 7 of 27 from 3. Baylor played great defense in that regard. And who would have thought Baylor was going to go 12 of 21 from 3 as well? So they really shot it well. And overall, they were the more physical team, the more dominant team, and the team that was more locked in defensively. So I was really impressed with the Bears' effort. And yeah, like you said, this is the signature win for Nikki Collin, and maybe this gets things rolling in the right direction.
Well, I mean, they're still just 13-4 overall, so it's not like, things have been terrible, but that's still, like, that 4 losses is like season totals in years past, but again...
It's the 2 Big 12 losses, I think, that really just are like, what in the world? Kim would go 16-2 every year in the Big 12, and it's like, well, this is a different year. This is a very competitive league this year. Yeah,
and, I think she's already taken a couple at LSU already, too, so, I mean, it happens, but coming up for the Lady Bears... For the Baylor women, that's still,
it's tough, yeah.
Lady Bears rolls off the tongue, But coming up next for the Baylor women, they've got, obviously, Big 12 play continuing on. That's going to be the focus. Texas Tech out in Lubbock coming up tomorrow night on Wednesday night, and then this Saturday on the road against West Virginia. So 2 big road games coming up. Tech on Wednesday, West Virginia on Saturday. They'll eventually return to the Farrell Center a week from Wednesday to play Oklahoma and then Texas back-to-back. So, yeah, a couple of big weeks coming up here for the Baylor women, and they'll actually play Texas twice in 3 days here in a couple of weeks because of the canceled game earlier in the season. So, there you go, 13-4, inside the top 15, and a couple of big wins, and now 3 wins in a row, or 1 real big win ranking-wise, and then 3 in a row. So we'll see how the women keep it going. But on the men's side of things, number 5, Baylor men's basketball, number 4, Baylor men's basketball, but no longer number 1, Baylor men's basketball. That's the thing that we got so used to there for a little while, off and on, and it'll probably be on again at some point. I wouldn't doubt it at all from this men's basketball team. Now 17-2 overall, and they took a couple of licks, Grayson, here as of late, but found a way to correct themselves last week. Wins over West Virginia out in Morgantown, and then a win in Norman. So they lost 2 at home, then go hit the road, win 2 on the road, and now they will be coming back to the Farrell Center later tonight, as a matter of fact, against Kansas State, and then they will turn around on Saturday and take part in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, where they will square off with the Alabama Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa. So home game tonight against K-State, and then road trip to Alabama on Saturday. But wins over OU and West Virginia last week to get over those tough losses to Oklahoma State and Tech the week prior. Your thoughts on Scott Drew and the Baylor men?
Well, I mean, you got to be feeling pretty good with where they're at, considering that they already have 2 home losses. That usually doesn't bode well, but on the flip side, they already have 4 road wins in conference, with wins over Iowa State, TCU, West Virginia, and Oklahoma on the road. That's exactly where you need to be with your road wins. They're currently second behind Kansas, who, man, Kansas is just, they're winning so many close games right now. That game last night against Texas Tech was insane. Both teams scored in the 90s, but Kansas is finding ways to win, and that's what they've done, under Bill Self for years. But this year, it just seems like even more so. I mean, they had a game against Kansas State last week where they were down, I think, 16 at half. They gave up 50 in a half. So really interesting to see how that plays out. But I do think you're starting to see some separation at the top. I think Kansas, Baylor, and Texas Tech are the three best teams in this conference at this moment, and I do think there's a little bit of separation with Baylor and Kansas. I think those are the two teams to beat. But I'll say after this week, I mean, if you're a Baylor fan and you're watching this team go out and win these two games without Jeremy Sohan, with a very hobbled James Akinjo not playing, and they were able to get these two wins, I mean, that bodes really well for them. So hopefully they just get healthy, get to a point where they have a nice long stretch of just being consistently healthy. And if that happens, I just think this team has all the makings of being a Final Four team again.
You and Jack were having a pretty spirited conversation before we went on air. Anything stand out to you from that conversation as far as y'all's points of contention?
Based on
y'all's back and forth on basketball? Just what would you say was y'all's biggest disagreement?
Dale Bonner.
Yeah,
okay. I mean, it's just figuring out, this is my only point really, is that Langston Love clearly was going to be a huge factor for this team. And with James Akinjo out, they are being forced to play Dale in these minutes. And it's just tough because I think Dale is a year away from being a guy that you really want on the court for long stretches of games. And, Jack talked about how he's a glue guy, a guy that plays hard. And yes, he does. He does play hard. He gives it his all, but it's just a lot of times I see a lot of out of control play. And I hate singling on Dale Bonner because it's like he's only averaging 14 minutes a game or something like that. But I think it's been more evident recently because of James Akinjo being out. He's been forced into a role that has been tough for him. But on the other hand, Baylor's won some games, even with him maybe not playing his best, because Matthew Myers had games where he's gotten hot. LJ Cryer continues to just be the absolute breakout player of the year on this team. That guy, he can fill it up. And even with Flagler being inconsistent, they've been able to kind of make up for it in different ways.
Yeah, they've really assembled a great collection of talent. Just the last 3-4 years, if you look at just the players in and players out and roster makeup and how they fill roles and guys, it's just super impressive. And it's fun to hear, spirited conversations about the roster and who's what and where this guy fits in and all of that. But the best part is just seeing this team win as many games as they're winning, and they are in a super tough conference. If you watch Texas Tech and Kansas last night, I mean, that's just going to be one example of many games I'd expect to be like that the rest of the way with various teams across the Big 12, and it'll be really interesting to watch, how this thing plays out here over the next few weeks, because whoever wins the Big 12 is one damn good basketball team. I mean, Bottom line, period. And even those who don't win it, there's still some really good ones there as well.
I know we don't like to talk about must-wins very much because it's early in the season, but
we're getting there, kind of. I mean, it's nearly February at this point.
This game feels like a must-win if they want to win the Big 12.
Okay.
I think they need to win this game. Kansas State, I know Kansas State's gotten hot recently. They've gotten healthy. They're playing hard. They're doing some things well, but at the end of the day, in their last, 7 games, they're 2-5. I mean, that's the end of the day. That's where they're at. And you cannot lose this game at home. If Baylor wants to win the Big 12, you cannot lose 3 games at home. At least I wouldn't think so, unless this team is just going to be the greatest Big 12 team ever on the road this year, which they would probably have to be if they lose another one at home. But yeah, that's just kind of where I'm at tonight. I think they're going to get the job done. They're 14-point favorites. I'm not sure they're going to cover that because K-State's been playing hard. They've kept a lot of games close, but I do think Baylor needs to find a way to win this one, and hopefully, this Alabama game and this West Virginia game that are coming up, hopefully they're starting to get healthier again, and maybe we get to see Jeremy Sohan out there.
So before we get into the mailbag, just saw where, obviously Baylor just picked up Javion Wilcox from Lake Belton. Just saw Brian Cope, who's the head coach at Lake Belton, tweeting out that Kevin Curtis stopped by today. Wonder why. Maybe check in on his brand new commit from Lake Belton. But yeah, just happened to notice that, and it's pretty nice when Brian Cope has got this brand new school and is obviously going to have a lot of talent coming through there. He said, thanks for stopping by to Kevin Curtis, but also said, great to have the Big 12 Conference champs so close by. Yeah. And then a picture of Xavier Newman and Dave Aranda raising the trophy. And it's still kind of crazy to see that, and just how impactful this past season was for this program. All right, and good to have a program like Lake Belton starting up and with talent that's going to be, just down the road as well. So good to get it in early on that program, and Brian Cope does a good job. All right, getting to the mailbag to close things out on a very busy week. Scotty B, in terms of a surprise in the Baylor women's basketball's dominant win against number 7 Iowa State on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being most surprised, how surprised were you? For me, it would be an 8, not so much the win because I thought Baylor could beat Iowa State, though I expected it to be within 10 points. Yeah, I'd say probably an 8 as well. I mean, I wasn't shocked by them winning that game. I was a little bit surprised. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't give really a whole lot of thought on how much they'd win by or whatever. I was just hoping that they would win that game. But yeah, I'd say an 8. I wasn't like, oh my gosh, but it was more like, oh my gosh, good win for them. That's kind of how I was.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Scotty B here. I was actually at a 5 that they won because I just felt like that's the expectation.
Yeah.
You're at home.
Right. They haven't done enough to just totally feel like every win's an important win now. I mean, they gotta maintain some level of credibility and belief and not, suddenly think that just going above 500 is an accomplishment or something.
No. Yeah. So that's why it was a 5 for me. But I will say the way they did it, if you're going to say, oh, Baylor's going to win by 26 points. Yeah. Okay. That maybe pushes it to more like a 7 or an 8 for me. The threes were surprising. But I would say even if Baylor shot 7 for 21 or whatever, instead of 12 of 21, they still win that game by double digits. So, I mean, they were just impressive. They're the more physical team. They dominated the glass. They played harder. I love seeing it. And, Nikki Collins got this program, I think, going in the right direction. And I think it's only gaining more and more momentum.
Man, I think if she were to rise up and turn them into a champions, would that rattle the bones of more people than Matt Rule? As far as accomplishing success after Backlash? I think so, and the craziest part is they can definitely win this conference.
Yeah. That's the other part. They
I don't want to jinx it, but man, it would be funny.
Oh, I would love to see it.
It would be funny. Scotty B, so I think we're all in agreement. Not shocked by a win, but yeah, the style of winning big was cool.
I mean, if she finds a way to get to the Elite 8, my goodness.
Let's slow down now.
No, but I'm just saying because remember all those years where Kim kept losing in the Sweet 16? Yeah, it's woo.
Stat Boy, what seed do y'all project the Texas men's basketball team to be in March Madness this year?
I think I have them an 8 seed, is probably 8 or 9, kind of right in there, even though I think they're probably going to finish in the top half of the Big 12. They're probably going to be 5th or 6th. They just don't have any marquee wins.
Yeah, I haven't given them any thought in that regard, Stat Boy. Closer to tournament time, I might have more thoughts on projections, but Grayson offered you opinion there. He also asked, how do they rank in the Big 12 in your opinion?
So I guess my rankings right now, I think Baylor's the best team in the Big 12 still. I got Kansas 2nd, Tech 3rd, TCU 4th, Iowa State 5th, and then I have Texas right there at 6th, and then Oklahoma State, Kansas State, West Virginia. And I actually think Oklahoma might be the worst team in the Big 12. It's just a tough year. There's a lot of really good teams, and K-State's finally starting to turn a corner a little bit.
Divot Maker responded, who the flip cares? So Divot not a fan of the UT question, but we do appreciate it, Stat Boy. Blessed 17870. Is there a list of which Senior Bowls our guys are participating in? I have seen some in the Shrine, some of the Reese's, and I think the NFLPA. I actually was thinking about writing an article on this. May do that tonight. I didn't see if anybody else had done that just yet.
Yeah, and I know you were keeping track of the list.
I've had the list for 2 weeks. Yeah. The only thing that changed was JT Woods flipped bowls, but I had listed off the guys 2 weeks ago. Because I went and checked out the rosters ahead of time, and I do have a list of guys that are going to be participating, and I'll see if I still have it here, but I might not even want to tell you just in general because I might just want to write an article on it.
Well, do both. Do both if you do have it.
I had already been thinking about it anyway, so now I'll probably definitely do that. But yeah, JT Woods, Abram Smith, Terrell Bernard, Jalen Petrie are all in the senior. Told you guys that 3 weeks ago.
The Reese's, right?
That's the Reese's Senior Bowl. You got Taekwon's and Tyquan Thornton and Treston Ebner and Kalen Barnes and Xavier Newman are all in the East-West Shrine, and that's the list. It's 4-4 in those 2 games. And JT was originally supposed to be in the NFLPA Collegiate Bowl, but obviously got a Reese's offer and made the decision to switch to the Senior Bowl.
Gotta do that. Yeah,
that's not even a question, quite frankly. All due respect to the Collegiate Bowl folks, but the Reese's Senior Bowl is like the marquee game. So you also get to play alongside Abram and Terrell and Jalen Petrie as well. So, yeah, they'll have a good contingent, one of the better ones that they've had in quite some time. And very interested to see where all 4 of those guys end up when all is said and done. But there you go. I'll say it one more time, and then you can read the article later. JT, Abram, Treston, and Terrell – JT, Abram, Terrell, and Jalen to the Senior Bowl. Xavier Newman, Tyquan, Treston Ebner, and Kalen Barnes to the East-West Shrine game. So there you go.
And as far as the Combine goes, JT told me that he got invited to the Combine. I think most of the guys that go to the Reese's Senior Bowl get an invite to the Combine, right? So now it's just a matter of, does Tyquan get an invite? I would think that he would. I mean, he's had a really productive career. He's going to run well.
Yeah, maybe. I think I could see why he'd be sort of borderline, though. But no, I would think he does get an invite. But I do wonder about him just size-wise and whatnot. I think he had a really good year. But, I don't know. I don't know what it really comes down to for, cuts in terms of, that kind of jazz.
Yeah, but I'm excited for the pro day, though, because if Kalen Barnes and Tyquan Thornton don't get invited to the Combine and they go out there to Baylor's pro day, we might see something crazy on those lasers. We might see a 4-3 pop up. But I think mainly the Senior Bowl guys are going to get invited. Tyquan would be the guy that I would be like, I think he might get invited as well to the Combine. But outside of that, I don't know if Ebner and those guys
There's just so many good receivers, too, though. Like, Tyquan's fast, but so what? So are like 50 other guys. You know what I mean? And I do think Tyquan will be somebody that's interesting. But, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see 1 or 2 guys maybe not make the list as far as the Combine goes. But then again, if all of them made it, I wouldn't be surprised by that either. I really don't know what goes into that decision-making process. When will they schedule pro day? I don't know. Sometime soon, obviously, because they're going to have to do it relatively soon.
They usually release it when they release their spring practice schedule, right? Isn't it normally sometime in April, I think, at the end of spring ball? Or
I don't know. It feels like it's earlier than that because April's the draft. So that would be button up against the draft. No, it normally feels like it's sometime in February or March, maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head. They all kind of run together now at this point, and they haven't really been in total all that notable here in recent years. A couple here and there, but a couple that just were just no-shows, basically.
2021, it was March 31st.
Okay.
So end of March, early February.
So we got a little bit of a ways to go, and I'm sure we'll hear about that in the coming weeks. But, yeah, I'm excited to hear that date because I do think it's going to be one of the better pro days. Like I said, they've had some where, there's 3 or 4 guys you're like, hey, this would be fun to see what scouts come out. And then they've had a couple when things have been down where it's just like, whoa. Yeah.
Inviting guys from Mary Hardin Baylor,
Yeah, that was a courtesy, and then all of a sudden it almost became a necessity there for a couple years early on with Rule. They just did not have a lot to offer. But, this year will be a big difference. There will be 8 to 10 guys who will be worth checking out for NFL guys, CFL guys, etc. Bryce B. Any speculation on a wide receivers coach, Grayson? If you had to guess, just your opinion, don't hold back. Who do you think?
See, I can't do this because I hear, I'll be influenced by, basically, I would be telling you a name that I don't actually believe would be the wide receiver coach of Baylor. So I'm not gonna give, I just can't
Michael
give anything
Irvin.
away. Yeah, okay, yeah, let's go there. Or Levi Norwood's coming back to coach, or so I don't know, but I just don't want to give away too much. I know interviews are still going on. This has been a long, dragged out process, a lot longer than I thought it would be. But yeah, hopefully in the next probably early February is when I think we'll probably get an answer. But yeah, I'm not going to speculate on guys currently. I'm just too influenced by things that I hear or whatnot. I just don't want to say anything that probably I shouldn't say.
Bear Coug, our offensive recruits transfer starting to view our offense as somewhat one-dimensional. For instance, wide receivers look at our passing numbers, especially towards the end of the season, and be somewhat worried about our productivity in the passing game. Obviously, some of it has to do with injuries, but maybe something recruits transfers consider.
Yeah, it is. For wide receiver recruits specifically, in this most recent class, I've heard some negatives about the wide receiver position, just being, Baylor's not a pass-heavy offense. Baylor doesn't do this or that in the passing game and whatnot. And I mean, that's fine. Guys are going to have their opinions on that. But if you look up and look at what Tyquan Thornton did this year, I mean, he was really, really productive. They're going to have guys that are productive. I would also say it was year one under Jeff Grimes. I would also say that the quarterback position was a little up and down. It
wasn't great. I mean, just let's rip the mask off. Quarterback play was very average this year.
It was very average, and they were able to win despite that.
Yes.
And so I think as they get better at that position, I do think that they'll be better throwing the football. And honestly, just go look at what Zach Wilson did at BYU. I mean, they threw the ball a ton and threw it to a bunch of guys who aren't in the league right now. So you give them NFL talent with a quarterback that can really sling it. I do think there's high upside for the wide receivers. And I think a lot of wide receivers who are smart enough to see that will understand it. And when they talk to Jeff Grimes and kind of hear his plan, I think they'll be much more accepting of kind of the role that the wide receivers played this season, because they decided to rely on their run game and their defense.
I said this thought the other night, but it's been going on 5 seasons now where quarterback play has been pretty average. I mean, you think about it, you got to go back to Seth Russell.
Well, I mean, average from a talent perspective, I would say 2018, Charlie was above average. It's just the defense was horrific. You remember that year? I mean, they were putting up a ton of points. That was when he looked the healthiest. Like that Vandy game, he looked like he was going to be the best quarterback in the Big 12. And 2019, he was average. I wouldn't say they won despite him, but he was average. He was probably like Gary this year, except with less turnovers.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you look at really 2018 Charlie.
I'm talking about like elite quarterback play.
Yeah, elite, yeah.
Seth Russell going down was the last time we saw that, and that was 6 years ago, or almost 6 years ago.
Yeah, even Stidham, when he came in for him, was
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he had like a couple moments like K-State and Oklahoma State or whatever, but Oklahoma State?
He cost them, though, U-game.
Point being, like I said, they have not had elite quarterback play in about 5 years on campus. I mean, as far as like a stud dude that know's the guy and doesn't have any, his arm's not that, or his legs aren't that, or his decision making, like just a dude, and they have not had that in a while. But they've managed to win a lot of games in the meantime. So if they can find that guy, ultimately, you really wonder what they could turn it into.
Yeah, tough position, definitely, to address.
It's tough to land, and nobody in the conference really had anything to really write home about this year, quite frankly. Caleb Williams was great, but none of that was really by design. That was mostly just by complete freestyling.
And you could tell he's a year away. Like, he's going to be great. His talent is great, and I'm sure we'll see it at Texas this year. We're going to be like, wow, Quinn Ewers is talented, but he's going to lose games. He's going to have those young moments. And so, yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't have experience.
God, he stays healthy the entire time. Because, man, all this hype already. Dude, this guy better be like, I'm tired of hearing about him already. Yeah. And I may get real tired of it over like the next several years because he may be as good as advertised. But my gosh, man, like this is.
I hope their over-under is like 9 wins. Because
I mean, as far as the hype goes, I've already said, and I don't want to talk about it anymore because I want to finish these questions, but I've already said, like, there's no more excuses. Like, all this hype and stuff, like, every year it's hype, deflate. Oh, well, our defense wasn't this, or it was our coaches. I'm tired of hearing it. Win some damn games if you're so special. And then now with all this talk, win or just shut up. All right. Bear Coug, off-topic question. What do you think about SMU's recent stadium expansion and football upgrades? The planned facility upgrades are good, but expansion of seating makes no sense as they can barely get $15K to show up already. Do you think they can buy themselves into a Big 12 invite if there's a second round of realignment? I personally hope not. I prefer Memphis, UCF, Colorado State, and Boise State. Those schools impress me more than SMU. Plus, you get more eyeballs and support from those fan bases. I mean, they're a part of Chapter 2 if Chapter 2 goes through the way it's supposed to. So is Memphis. So is USF. So is Boise State. Colorado State, I have not heard anything about them. And right now, I would not think I would not think that they would get an invite ahead of SMU, but I also know this is all kind of on the burner right now because all of what happened with just the first round of realignment and now all these TV contracts and grant of rights and OU Texas and what are they going to do and when are they going to do it and all of that, I feel like that's kind of like slowed the let's move and let's grab these teams, like it slowed it to a drip for the time being. I still think the Big 12 is interested in doing that, and that's still who they would focus in on. But yeah, I still think he would beat SMU over Colorado State. I just don't think that's all going to happen, imminently, like the first round of realignment, kind of like rumors, and then boom, it happened. And then I think this second chapter is going to take a little more time because there's a lot of stuff to iron out that's not even all in their control. Like, what kind of TV contract does this conference get? And what does that mean for us in regards to if we have this group of teams, how would that change if we had this group of teams as well? And I think that's all the stuff they're trying to figure out right now. But as far as SMU goes, I think that if they want to be in the Big 12, that's things they had to do, was upgrade the stadium and expansion and all that. But I'm with you. I'm curious to see, like, the moment they're not, scoring 60 a game and high flying and doing all that, I mean, is it going to be 5,000 people in the stands again? Very well could be very quickly as well.
But either way, I saw some numbers that, they've been really good the last 3 years.
They've gotten better.
And they still can't get people to come to games.
Yeah.
Because they're all on the outside of the stadium hanging out instead of going and
doing
watching
lines
the
of
game.
Coke and whatnot, yeah.
But it's a problem, right? That's a huge problem that they have. And if you're going to, I just think that that's one of those things where if you can't get people to show up now, what's going to happen when you're not winning games? So I do agree with you.
That's what Scott Drew's asking.
Yeah. Well, I do agree with you, though, the fact that SMU will probably be in expansion plans, even though for me, I was outspoken. I didn't want Houston in the last round, and I wouldn't want SMU either. Why add all these Texas schools? It makes no sense to me why you would do that. But, I understand that it's a business, and SMU would probably be on that list before Colorado State.
Well, and look at what Houston's doing right now, too. They're going to be a nice addition. I know you look at it from the standpoint of, that cuts into this team or that team. But, if you handle your business, it really shouldn't. You might lose out on a couple local Houston kids. But, if you handle yours, the only reason you should be scared of UH is because they're just doing better than you. And I don't think Baylor's afraid of that. Now, SMU, that's carving in just for no reason. I agree with you on that. But I think it's more about how they see that school in the future. Just because of all the money they've got and the location, and it's kind of a fresh brand again. But their big question is, like you said, like, their fans don't care. Like, they still don't care that much. And, Sonny Dykes decided, hey, I'm going to the Big 12 and TCU, and we'll see what Rhett Lashley's able to do. But I don't think he's long for that job either if he has success. So, yeah, I think they're a curious addition if it turns into that. And I wouldn't be opposed. Like, I'd love to go on the Colorado State road trip,
Oh, yeah.
So I'm with you on that. But I just think that they look at it, those who are making decisions, at least the last we heard, SMU is just a bit more desirable because of mostly NIL. That played a lot into kind of why they were having some sway, was because of all the business opportunities in Dallas.
Well, I think it would spread out the conference a little bit when you talk about Colorado State. If you get Boise State and Colorado State to naturally align with BYU and Texas Tech, I just think the West side, it would make sense in that regard. But again, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, we will see. I think that's something we're going to have to wait on a little bit. Bear Kook, thanks for the question. Do appreciate you. Dak, what are realistic expectations for the defense without Bernard, Petrie, Barnes, McVay, Woods, et cetera, next year?
So, simply put, I think their defensive line is going to be better next year by a significant amount. Their linebackers will be worse without Bernard. Their safeties will be worse without Woods and Petrie. And their cornerbacks, in my opinion, will be better because Walcott is a year better. And I think whoever they have opposite him will be as good, if not better, than what Kalen Barnes and Raleigh Tejada did for them. That's just simply put. So 2 positions better, 2 positions worse. I think you kind of can chalk it up as just about even. And so therefore, I think Baylor could be a top 10, top 15 defense again.
Yeah, that's hard to imagine just with the list of guys that you're losing. But, I do think that some of them are replaceable. And in some cases, you could actually be better. Not in Bernard or Petrie or Woods' case, but realistically, yeah, like a top 25 defense. I think Grayson sounds like he'd go higher than that. I'm not going to be that optimistic, but I'm not going to be surprised if that's what happens either, because Dave Aranda and Ron Roberts are really good at what they do, and they've got some really good athletes on campus, and now they're really kind of sinking their claws into this defense as well and molding it into more of what they want. So, yeah, I'd expect and with the defensive line that they're expecting next year, like, man, you talk about a missed opportunity if they don't have a really good defense, because adding Jackson Player to your entire D-line returning, and as good as they were playing by the end of the year, this should be a really good defense.
I think I would also add to that just a simple fact. I think they really only need to be top 25 for them to win the Big 12, because I do think the offense is going to be much better in year 2.
Yeah, I think it should be. So thank you, Dak. I think we're all kind of on the same page as far as big expectations next season. Doc Crowell, if Grimes moves on, do you promote Mateos to keep him?
I think you would promote Mateos, but I think it would just be like a co-offense coordinator, because I don't even know if Coach Mateos really would want to
I have no idea.
Be a full-on offense coordinator and call plays. So maybe what you do is, if Grimes is ever ready to leave and go on to another job, maybe you do Sean Bell and Eric Mateos as co-offense coordinators. That could work out pretty well. Now, I do think that if Grimes ever left, I think he would definitely, potentially want to take Mateos with him. I mean, are you kidding me?
Probably.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to figure out, but I could see the co-OC thing and maybe having Bell be the pass game coordinator and Mateos be the run game coordinator. I could see that working for Baylor in the future.
Does Baylor keep Tyler Turner through till signing day?
Yeah, that's going to be a tough one. Texas made quite an impression on Tyler Turner over the weekend. He'll be here for Junior Day, so it's a big one for Baylor to impress him on this visit, because it definitely seems like Texas was talking to him and making an impression on him, building a good relationship with him. He's committed to Baylor, but I do think that it is going to be a battle to keep him, just because there's a lot of schools that are starting to have more interest in him. I know A&M was visiting him this week, so more schools are going to come, and I think Tyler Turner is just at the beginning of his recruitment, honestly, and I have him rated as a 4-star guy. I think he is a fantastic football player, and I think more and more schools are going to see that.
How far does Novosad go in the Elite 11?
I think he makes it through the regional, so I think he makes it into, the top 22. As far as the Elite 11 goes, I think he's got the arm talent to finish inside the top 11, so maybe go to the Elite 11 finals, get an invite to that, and I think that's probably as far as he goes, because we know a Baylor quarterback will not be given the Elite 11 championship. I mean, Zach Pyron performed about as well as you possibly could. Kyron Drones probably should have won it the year that he was there. Neither one came away with a win, so it's going to be tough for him to come away with the trophy, just because there's a little bit of bias sometimes.
So dumb, like throughout this industry, the little pieces of bias, whether it's like star rankings or it's just so dumb.
There's a reason a 5-star wins that award every year.
Yeah, it's called money, is what it's called. And it's gross. Grizz Air, how good is the women's basketball team with the recent Iowa State win? They kind of changed perceptions in a hurry.
I think they're good enough to win the Big 12.
Yeah, I'm not going to go too overboard, though, on them like, oh, man, they're good. But, yeah, I mean, it's good to see, but, I mean, I don't think that they're like, I'm not ready to hang banners just yet.
No, and for me, they're a team that could make the Elite 8 and just as easily get upset in the round of 32.
Yeah,
that's what I've seen from them so far. And I'm hard pressed to say that they can make a Final Four. I need to see them beat a team that they've lost all the teams that are good enough to make the Final Four, and so that makes me kind of pause. And no, I don't think Iowa State's good enough to make the Final Four. So I think that's kind of where I'm at. The ceiling right now for me is Elite 8, but the floor, I could see them losing the round of 32. They've had some inconsistent stretches.
Yeah, optimism is growing, but they're still a small roster and still, figuring things out. But, I mean, it's good to see what they're experiencing right at this moment, with a couple of wins or 3 wins, I guess, in a row, and being able to kind of just enjoy that. I've enjoyed that for them because I know the start of the season and then the COVID pause and all that was just really tough. So let's hope they keep it going so we can keep talking good about them, because all it takes is losing a couple games this week and people will be ready to fire Nikki Collin, So it's just the way that it goes. But, enjoyable at the moment. 93 Bear, can you compare fast break points from championship year to this year and why? I suspect, but have nothing to back it up, there's been a big drop-off in pushing the ball up the court.
Yeah, so the only number that I have is tempo. I couldn't find an exact fast break point stat for college. So I guess the tempo that I see is this year's group is 155th in the country in tempo. Last year's group was actually 213th in tempo. So they're actually playing a little bit faster this year than they did a year ago. We'll see how that balances out throughout the course of the season. I have a feeling that with Akinjo and Sohan out, maybe they've kind of slowed things down a little bit. But we'll see. I mean, that's kind of where they're at. So I have no evidence to back up that they were pushing it more last year than this year, at least to this point in the season.
USNA 82. What the hell is Casey Phillips doing? What was his issue at Baylor? See where he is visiting Iowa State.
Yeah, I think it was just, from what I heard, I thought it was injuries and things like that kept him from playing. I haven't seen that he was visiting Iowa State, and frankly, good for him if he does play again. Yeah. That's great, but I mean, to be honest, I don't think he was going to be a great fit for what they were trying to do offensively, and he never really panned out at Baylor, and a lot of that was due to injuries.
I don't even know what his Twitter address is. I'm not even trying to find that to see if there's something that he posted or something. Because, I didn't know anything about him visiting Iowa State or anything along those lines. So that's news to me, and being that it is, I can't really say much more about it because I had no idea he was even looking at playing football at this point. Because like you, he had injuries and, I thought that was it. So, I don't know. I couldn't tell you what he's doing to answer your question, but we'll look into that. And I don't see anything. And just a little.
I see his Twitter, but he hasn't really posted anything. He retweeted an Iowa State offer, so maybe he is.
Okay.
Maybe he is somewhat looking at
Iowa Twitter.
State.
I don't even see it.
It's Phillips KC1 is Casey's Twitter. He still has Baylor University alumni, Baylor football in his bio. So
I'm glad I just got Craig Smoke. Like it didn't have to be like numbers and backwards.
That's how mine is too.
Yeah,
because of my last name.
Yeah, just simple. Okay. You retweeted somebody else's offer from Iowa State.
Yeah.
And that's it. So, I mean, I have no idea to answer your question. I have no idea about anything in regards to that. But, just somebody who didn't work out at Baylor. That's really all there is to it. And I think there was injuries and whatnot as well. So, all right, that'll bring us to a close this week. And do want to say thank you to USNA 82 and 93 Bear, Grizzair.crowd, Dak JD90, Bear Coog, Divot Maker, Bryce B, Blessed One, 7870, Stat Boy, and Scotty B, the Baylor King. Do appreciate all of you for your questions this week. Check out my article on the special teams if you get a chance to, and by the time you listen to this, maybe I'll have another one out on the All-Star games. Grayson's got plenty of articles on recruiting and everything else that's available, and the staff has got other articles. I mean, there's just a lot. There's a lot to peruse through, a lot to read through, and a lot to enjoy if you're a Baylor sports fan. Currently over on Sic'Em365.com, and of course, a lot of conversation in the premium section as well. Anything before we go, Grayson?
Yeah, just quick thing that I just saw, kind of breaking news, is that former Baylor interim coach Jim Grobe is now on the College Football Playoff Committee.
Oh, really?
Which is cool. That's really
Grobe.
cool to see that he's made the list. I think there were a few people that need to be replaced. They added Navy Athletic Director Chet Gladchuk, and then Jim Grobe, Michigan AD Ward Manuel, and Kelly Whiteside, longtime sports writer for USA Today. So those are the new additions to the College Football Playoff Committee, but I thought it was really cool that Jim Grobe is on there. So, I mean, outside of that, it's going to be a really exciting weekend. I'm going to have tons of news and notes and hopefully some interviews from Junior Day as well, the weekend of champions for Baylor on the recruiting trail, and we'll see how that goes. And then as far as basketball goes, really exciting week. A lot of momentum for both basketball programs as they look to finish strong in conference play.
Yeah, new college football playoff chair is NC State AD Boo Corrigan. Takes over for Gary Barta. Good. Gary Barta, get out. Yeah. You terrible. Get out. Good riddance.
Yeah, 3-year contract for Boo.
Good riddance. I did not like the Gary Barta era of explanations.
I never thought I would miss Kirby Hokut, but I actually did.
Yeah, I still don't. I wouldn't go that far still, but all better than Jeff Long. I think we can agree with that. But Yeah. All right. That shouldn't hurt Baylor in any way. Go win games like you did this year and actually beat TCU, and maybe Jim Grobe can get you that step into the college football playoff. But thanks for that note, and that'll do it for this week. I want to thank Jack and Armstrong behind the scenes for all the work that they do. Thank you to all of you who listen each week, and we're here every single week, all year long, pretty much. Very consistent. Even if I'm not here, Grayson's doing it, and there may be 1 or 2 weeks the entire year where neither one of us is, but that's it. And so we do appreciate your loyalty and listening on a weekly basis, and for those of you who ask questions as well. But until next time, for Grayson and Jack and Armstrong, I'm Craig Smoke, and this has been the Bearcast on Sic'Em365.com.